133 out of 135 cardinals from around the world eligible to vote will from today begin the conclave in the Sistine Chapel in Rome to elect the new Roman Catholic Church's leader. For the next couple of days, the cardinals will be barred from contact with the outside world as they deliberate and cast their votes in keeping with the secretive, centuries-old tradition. This comes after the passing away of Pope Francis last month. To talk more about what the process being followed to elect the new Pope means for the Catholic Church, we're joined by the Chairperson of the Southern African Catholic Bishops' Conference's Catholic Institute of Higher Education, a Bishop of the Mariannhill Diocese as well. That's Bishop Neil Frank of the Congregation of the Oblates of Mary Immaculate. So good to have you, Bishop. Thank you very, very much for your time.
Good morning, Leanne. Thank you.
So, I mean, this tradition of the conclave, it goes back centuries. This is something that has been quite rich in history, and it seems that that history and the ancient traditions are still intact. It's nothing that's really changed too much, but obviously there have been changes. Perhaps you want to talk to us about that?
Yes, I think that the whole process draws a lot of attention. It's a beautiful process. It brings the reality of the Church and its contact with God, and ensures that the Holy Spirit works through the cardinals who are the electors. You used the word secretive earlier. It's not secretive in the sense of being clandestine or hiding anything. It's a secret vote, just like we have a secret vote in our own elections in the country. So the cardinals themselves are protected in that way, that we don't know who they vote for. And that's the secrecy of it. And since there's only 133, they have to be extra careful so that each cardinal is protected in his own conscience as he votes.
Yeah, and that's the reality. I think I said it much earlier in the program, and we were just talking about that. It's almost as if the individual is not necessarily involved, and it's just being led by God. I mean, that's the belief that does happen when the vote takes place.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, perhaps tell us about that.
Well, it's a process of discernment of where does God want the Church to go, and who does God want to choose as a leader to succeed in the shoes of St. Peter, the first Pope, as we say. So it's a process of the Holy Spirit interacting with the human person, and a lot of prayer and discernment goes into that. The cardinals have had lots of time in the last 9 days to speak with each other, to understand the situation of the Church and the kind of person they would want. But it's not just the situation of the Church, it's the situation in the world. All of these factors come in to help discern the way the Spirit is moving the Church and bring all the cardinals towards this 2/3 majority we need for the election of a Pope.
Yeah. You speak of St. Peter, and I find it incredibly interesting, and I'm not sure if people are too aware of this, but there's never been a Pope Peter II. There hasn't been one, and of course this is in honor of it's almost sacrosanct in honor of the first Pope Peter. And this year, for some reason, there's been a little bit of murmurings that there may very well be the chosen name of St. Peter. This is something I'm sure you wouldn't know of, but that's all a secret. Nobody knows, and as we say, probably only God knows what's about to happen. But St. Peter, very, very sacred, isn't it?
He is, and his whole relationship with Jesus, as recorded in the Gospels, is a powerful testimony to a person coming to faith and coming to understanding. Peter wasn't a perfect person, but he recognized his own weakness and his own desire to follow in the mission of Christ, and that's what makes him so incredibly special. And our theological reflection on his life brings that inspiration to us to carry the Church forward.
Yeah, we know that the last Pope chose the name Francis, that Francis of Assisi, and we know the legacy that he left behind, that being of a Pope of the people, a Pope for the people, and very pro-poor in what he was doing, and very vocal on many issues that some people felt, you know, this is not the direction that they wanted to see the Catholic Church going in. But this, of course, speaking to some people, many others welcomed the views of Pope Francis. So let's perhaps look at the conclave now and ask the question in terms of how influential Pope Francis was, because he has been very influential in terms of the composition of the cardinals that are making up the current conclave, and this may determine the direction that the Church goes in. Give us a glimpse into that.
Yes, I think this is very important. I think the success of Pope Francis is that he brought the Church to the people, and he brought people into the Church. No one was an outsider any longer. No one was on the periphery, but they were part of being on the inside. And bringing the heart of God to people, bringing the love and mercy of God to people, spoke a lot. And I think we need a Pope who's going to continue in that tradition, not just speaking to the individual. You know, people's lives are generally messy. And they want to know that the Church stands with them and that they experience God's love and God's forgiveness. But I think we also need a Pope who's going to speak to political, social, economic systems. We can see that deterioration in the world today. You know, in Africa, there are 35 armed conflicts. I cannot name all of them, but we need someone who's speaking to these situations as well, so that the dignity of every person is upheld. The humanity of every person is saved. And the Church needs to do that. First, to make people human. And the Church needs to contribute a lot to that. And I think the Pope's popularity will bring a lot to these situations in the world.
Yeah, whichever way you look at it, obviously there's very much so a big influence that the Pope does have, perhaps not in politics, but the view of the 1.4 billion followers of the Church. And also, if we look at the makeup of Africa, and this is something that's important and I'd like us to touch on, because for the first time there is one of the biggest showings of cardinals that have the ability to vote in the conclave. And we see even from South Africa, we have our representative, our cardinal there. I mean, Africa is home to 281 million Catholics, and this is a very big number. Perhaps the significance of having a greater show from the African continent at this year's conclave, what does it mean for the continent?
It means that the issues of the continent reach the highest powers in the Church, and these are considered. You know, the men who come from Africa are shaped by their life experience, the experiences in their countries, experiences of struggle for us in South Africa, and this shapes the way we receive the message of the gospel and how we promote human dignity across the world. Yeah. So I think it's very meaningful that we have a greater representation in the conclave.
Yeah, it really is very meaningful, and many, 17 African countries actually represented there, and the big names, Cardinal Peter Turkson of Ghana is one of those that's coming out as perhaps a top contender as well from the DRC, Cardinal Fridolin Ambongo Besungu. So there are many names, but our South African Cardinal Stephen Brislin are part of the voting process. So we know they've gathered, the Church's 133 cardinals out of 135, two of them absent due to ill health. They're there, they gathered at the Sistine Chapel. Now we believe that there's going to be a mass at 10:30 and then the whole process begins. So any idea when we can start beginning to see the voting process underway? I know it's in the afternoon sometime, and then of course again tomorrow, perhaps 4 times a day until they find who the next Pope is.
That's correct. The first vote's about 4:30 this afternoon. Okay. It's only one vote for today, and I think that kind of sets the scene to see where each cardinal is thinking, and it probably the top contenders will be will arise in that first vote. I don't expect personally that will be a complete result immediately, but there will be more votes tomorrow and on Friday. Yes.
Bishop, let's leave it there. Thank you. Thank you for your time. I hope we
Thank
get
you.
to speak to you again, because I know that this is really just the start of who knows how long, but perhaps, we will start seeing it by the end of this week or the weekend. But that was Bishop Neil Frank of the Congregation of the Oblates of Mary Immaculate and Chairperson of the Southern African Catholic Bishops' Conference's Catholic Institute of Higher Education.